More than 500 American and Allied pilots were trapped behind enemy lines. No rescue force was coming. No invasion followed. No official plan even existed to save them. If the Germans found them, they would be sent to prison camps or shot. If the villagers helping them were discovered, their entire families would be executed. And yet, they hid them anyway. This is Operation Halyard, the largest rescue of downed Allied airmen behind enemy lines in World War II. And for decades, almost no one talked about it. In 1944, Allied bombers filled the skies over Eastern Europe. Their target wasn't cities, it was oil. German fuel supplies were collapsing, and the Allies knew it. B-24 Liberators and B-17 Flying Fortresses flew deep into enemy territory, hitting refineries in Romania and supply routes across the Balkans. But German anti-aircraft fire was relentless. Planes were torn apart mid-air. Engines caught fire. Wings sheared off. One by one, Allied aircraft went down, not over friendly territory, but over occupied Yugoslavia. Pilots jumped, parachutes opening into silence. When they hit the ground, they realized something terrifying. They weren't behind enemy lines for a few hours. They were stuck there indefinitely.
Serbian villagers were the first to find them. Farmers, shepherds, families who had already seen their homes burned and neighbors killed by Nazi reprisals. They knew the rules. If you helped an Allied airman, the Germans would execute you. If they suspected you helped, they would execute you. If they couldn't find the airman, they would execute someone anyway. The safer option was obvious: turn the pilots in. Instead, villagers hid them. They cut holes under barns. They used caves in the hills. They dressed the airmen in peasant clothes and taught them how to walk, work, and stay silent. Every knock on the door could mean death. And the pilots kept coming.
By late 1944, there weren't 10 airmen hiding. There weren't 50. There were hundreds. Entire villages became invisible prisons, not for the pilots, but for the people protecting them. Food was scarce. Winter was approaching. German patrols were increasing. The villagers moved the airmen constantly, at night, in rain, through forests and over mountains. Some airmen were injured, some were sick. All of them were helpless without the civilians. And worst of all, the Allies had no idea where they were.
In Italy, an OSS officer named George Vujnovich started hearing rumors. Pilots weren't captured. They weren't dead. They were disappearing, but not in the usual way. Reports suggested Serbian civilians were hiding them. OSS leadership hesitated. The region was politically explosive. Multiple resistance groups, conflicting loyalties, high risk. Too risky, they said. Vujnovich didn't let it go. Eventually, the OSS approved a desperate move. One radio team, dropped behind enemy lines. No guarantee it would survive. If the rumors were wrong, everyone involved would die.
The radio worked, and what came back stunned everyone. Hundreds of airmen were alive. Now came the impossible part. How do you evacuate 500 men from occupied territory without alerting the Germans? The answer was insane. You build an airfield. Not with machines, not with lights, not during the day. Serbian villagers and Chetnik fighters began clearing a field by hand, cutting trees, leveling ground, removing rocks, always at night. German patrols passed nearby. One discovery would mean mass executions. The runway wasn't perfect, it just had to be good enough. In August 1944, the first C-47 Dakota transport plane approached. There were no runway lights, no navigation beacons, no control tower, only a dark strip of land and men praying the pilot could see it. Fog rolled in. The plane nearly aborted. At the last moment, the pilot spotted the field and landed hard. German units were nearby. The engines stayed running.
Airmen sprinted on board. As the plane lifted off, it barely cleared the trees. If it crashed, the Germans would find everything. They didn't. Operation Halyard had begun.
The airlift continued for weeks. Planes landed only at night, sometimes under fire, sometimes in storms. Villagers stood back, watching silently. No cheering, no celebration, just relief and fear. By the time it ended, over 500 Allied airmen had been evacuated. Not a single one was lost during the rescue. It was a miracle. After the war, politics intervened. Yugoslavia changed. Alliances shifted. Former helpers were labeled enemies. Many villagers who saved American pilots were imprisoned or executed. The mission was quietly classified. The story faded. Pilots went home. The people who saved them didn't. Operation Halyard wasn't won by generals or armies. It was won by farmers who shared their last bread, by families who hid strangers, knowing it could cost their children's lives, by people who chose humanity over survival. More than 500 men lived because ordinary civilians refused to look away. And for decades, almost no one knew their names.